demonstration, I'm going to show you how to use a JND387 shadow leaves to make this beautiful card here, which has the leaves actually stamped, because you're going to use the dies to make yourself your own stamp with this beautiful almost fingerprint shadowing in there. Really simple and easy to do, and tied up with the die cuts to match and one of the stitch flowers. So the shadow leaves have got basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dies. But what you've actually got is 2 pairs. So you've got a pair of large going left and right. You've got a pair of small going left and right. Then you have additional large leaves left and right to fit in, and additional small leaves left and right to fit in. And you'll notice with these, they've got this sort of embossed detail running all the way through it, of sort of shadowed down each time. That means that the leaves themselves, when used in a card like this, are giving you a beautiful sort of patternation on there, which you can ink, or you can emboss them to give you more detail. They'll also foil quite well as well. But the other thing that you can do, of course, with these is to stamp with them, as we saw in the first card. So I'm going to show you now how we actually turn these into a stamp. So I'm just going to use one set, and here I've got a piece of EVA or funky foam, which has been cut to, this is an A6 piece. I tend to work a lot on A6 pieces, and this just came from a local pound shop. So we'll take our leaves, and you can put 2 on and cut 2 if you want to. Make yourself 2 stamps, make yourself a left and a right. I only want 1, so I'm only going to pop 1 on, but I'm not going to waste any. And all I'm going to do is just tape that down, and I am going to cut this so that you can see exactly how easily this cuts and the pattern it gives you. So onto my Kaleido, I'll bring my Kaleido in so we can cut that nice and simple, and just run it through once. Don't run it backward and forward. You don't want it to move on the EVA foam and create little bits of shadow. But you'll see, it looks as if it isn't, but it's cut absolutely perfectly. But what this will also do is put a light imprint of that pattern onto the actual foam. Let's just take my pokey tool. So it will take a light pattern onto there, which will come out when you stamp. So hopefully you can see that there. So all we then need to do is to spray glue this and attach it onto a block. So I'm going to grab a block, and I've probably got one that's a little bit too small, but I've just spray glued down this, and let's just put this on. So I'm going to stick this down onto my block, and I would use one of your older blocks that you've got, perhaps. So you can see here, this is probably a little bit too small for this block, but I couldn't find any of my larger ones. I've already got one prepped. So you see there, we have our stamp. So here's one I've already made, and I've actually inked, so you can see how the pattern shows up on there. And it's so easy to use this as a stamp. So I've got a piece of coconut white essential card, and this works beautifully for this, as you get a really pretty impression onto the card as it's got texture itself. So I'm just going to ink the stamp. I'm using VersaFine Clair. I'm not trying to give it solidly, I'm just inking it in the raised areas, and then I'm simply going to stamp once. I'm going to repeat to give myself a second generation. But you can see there, you're getting almost like a fingerprint stamp. So it gives you like that beautiful, not quite crisp look of texture on there. So I'm going to ink that a second time and cross it over again once, and then I'm going to shadow it by getting a second generation. And you don't have to worry about using your stamp platform or anything for this, because obviously the foam has a little bit of give, so it stamps beautifully. So there I've got my really nice sort of cross pattern across just by using my stamp. And it's a different technique that we can get something fantastic out of. So I've actually got one here that I've already made, and I've matted up onto a piece of green card. And I've got a little strip here that's 1¼ inches by the same 5 inches, and again matted onto a little bit of green, and I've stamped the sentiment on there. So I'm just going to pop that on across the centre, just like that. I've got a little card blank here that I've made, which is just cut to 5½ by 7½ to give me a really nice little frame on this one. So I've put some foam tape on the back again, just to give a little bit of shadowing. I always think it makes your finished project look a little bit more expensive. So we pull that up, there we go, stick that down, and then I've cut the smaller leaves. So I've cut the smaller leaves that match, and that's what works so well with this die set. You're making a set of stamp and dies that match exactly, so they'll work so well together. So all I'm going to do is take a little bit of glue glaze, as I find that's the easiest way to glue these small shadow leaves. So just put a little bit of glue glaze on the back. Nice and simple. And I'm kind of echoing that pattern there. So just going across, and then I've got one of the beautiful new Stitch Flowers dies that I've made up in white with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of Craft Artist Super Tacky glue, and we just pop that in the center. And you can see there we've made a beautiful card just using dies, and we've got that stunning little leaves that match exactly with this sort of shadow leaf that's stamped on there.